From KARK4 and Fox 16, this is a special report. Here's Mitch McCoy.
Hello and good afternoon to you. I'm Mitch McCoy here at KARK4 and Fox 16. Just coming up on 2 o'clock here from Studio B, we have breaking news. The ACLU has asked state lawmakers to investigate the ASP pit maneuver. It's the technique law enforcement uses during high-speed chases. We've seen dash cam video. Susan El Khoury has been bringing us that video. As that video continues to come in from numerous FOIA requests, it's happening right here, Susan. The patrol car comes up, and I don't know if this is a pit maneuver. Good afternoon to you, Susan. Thanks for joining us today. This is quite a turn of events by the ACLU today, and it's because of your investigation, quite frankly.
Yeah, and this is something that we've been looking at, for months, and had been doing a lot of work pulling police records on this and trying to just get more information about pit maneuvers, which up until now hadn't been something that were widely being talked about in Arkansas, but we found they were being used more often. That's one of the things that our investigation uncovered, is that state police have used them more in the past year compared to years prior. So it was something that we started looking at and asking questions, and then along the way talking to people who had a lot of questions themselves about what was happening. And Nicole Harper, definitely one of them, about what happened with her, which you saw that happened actually last July, and now of course her case getting a lot of attention since she's filed a lawsuit around that pit.
Okay, so let's go through what you have been combing through for months. Records showing that the technique has been used at least 306 times since 2017, with half of those instances since 2020. I have to point out the word "at least." Is that because sometimes the records aren't being kept, or what?
Well, it's something that we were really careful to stress throughout our reporting, that "at least" part, because we understand that the records that we're getting from state police are just what they have released to us. When we first started asking questions to state police, honestly, I was expecting to maybe get a couple dozen reports a year. Was not expecting to see that it would be over 100 a year. And state police explained to me that the way that it keeps these records, yes, of course, it's a public record. Police have to do incident reports, but the way that they then follow up with it, it has to go through the chain of command. And according to state police, they said that they can't release those reports to me unless I know of a specific instance, until it has gone through the chain of command and gone through the investigative process. Then at that point, the department can start to pull the records. So for example, for this year, at this point, we've only been able to get a record of one pit maneuver that's happened this year. Obviously there have been more, but it's just part of kind of what it takes on the state police's end to release those records. And again, what I was told is that they need to go through the investigative process on their end before they can release one of these records.
It's worth noting, Susan, that some of these pit maneuvers have ended in someone dying.
Yes, that's something that we found, and it was something that wasn't always listed on the reports. It's something we went back. I personally read through all of these reports and then went back to see and look and see if someone had passed away, and then confirming that with state police. One of the cases that we talked about in our investigation from last month was involving Brian Brooks, and it never, on that one, it never said that he had passed away as a result of that pit maneuver. So it's information that we later pulled and found out. But that's one of the things, the questions that has really come up in this, is that there hasn't been a lot of consistency in how they're reported. If police, openly discuss that a pit maneuver happened, sometimes one of these will happen and you go back and you check a press release from that time, and you'll see that it just said that there was a crash involving police. It doesn't mention the pit maneuver. So it hasn't always been something that's consistently discussed in an open way.
What have you found, Susan, over the course of your investigation when it relates to the charges that come out of the use of these pit maneuvers? Are these for violent offenders? Are they for felony traffic stops? What are they?
Well, it's important to note for this that it varies. There have been cases where state police have been chasing a homicide suspect. They've used a pit maneuver and they've been able to arrest that person. That person was later, charged with the crime that they were initially chasing after them for. But in other cases, we did find a number of times it was over minor traffic violations. It would start over something like speeding, driving without your headlights on. That was in Brian's case, and speeding in Nicole Harper's case. Speeding was a big one, or they would see maybe a headlight out, or someone who didn't have the registration tag up to date. So all of those would kind of start a chase, and then like what you see in Nicole Harper's case, in her instance, it leads to fleeing. But in Nicole Harper's case, she's saying, hey, I wasn't fleeing. I was trying to find a safe place to stop.
Yeah, it's all really interesting. The data that you have found related to the use of these pit maneuvers. Now, the ACLU is asking state lawmakers to investigate Arkansas State Police's policy, I guess, into pit maneuvers. This has really taken off a lot of, this has really been seeking a lot of attention over the last 48 hours after national media picked your story up, Susan, as well. All of it from the course of your investigations over the last month. I want to bring in a Facebook comment. This is coming in from John, Susan. John is saying people just need to pull over, bottom line. One could make the argument, and this is what this woman's lawyers are arguing, is that she was trying to pull over, that she was trying to get to a safer part of the highway. That's what the lawsuit's claiming. But what does state law say when it comes to the amount of time that you need to pull over? When does it turn from I'm trying to pull over in a safe way, in a safe area, compared to a pursuit?
So a couple of different factors in play in that. And one of the things in the course of our investigation we found is that the policy that state police have right now is pretty broad on when a trooper is allowed to use a pit maneuver. And it's ultimately up to that trooper's discretion. There are some limits, like they can't be done on motorcycles or pickup trucks if someone is sitting in the bed of the truck. But in large part, it's up to the officer to use their discretion for when they feel like they need to use a pit maneuver to end a pursuit. So in terms of like road conditions, those are things that come into training and what's talked about then, and all of those things, we've tried to talk to state police about, and every time we requested an interview, that's been turned down. State police have sent us a statement though from Director Bill Bryant, and the line that we keep going back to in that is that state police's stance is that in every case it's up to the driver to pull over and stop. And they're saying, when the blue lights go on, you pull over and stop. So in Harper's case, where she's saying, hey, the shoulder is small. I knew that we were in between exits, but I knew just up the road there was going to be another exit, and that's where I was trying to pull to. State police aren't talking to us about that situation, and ultimately we know that the senior corporal Dunn, the trooper who was involved in this pit maneuver, didn't face any disciplinary action that's being publicly released. So he wasn't suspended, he wasn't terminated over this. And so that's just been another big question about, well, okay, what are the parameters? Are there cases where maybe a pit maneuver shouldn't have been the first line of a tactic used to try and stop a pursuit?
Here's another comment, and I know you got to run, Susan. This comment's coming in from Jasper. Jasper says she wasn't running, though. She was trying to get to a safe spot to pull over, per the Arkansas driver's manual. Stops in places like that are what get officers hit and killed. And that is what lawyers are arguing here. It will be interesting to see as this whole scenario plays out what the state argues, because we do know what is in that driver's manual. We know that state police is represented by the Attorney General's office, right?
Yes, that's true. And at this point, because it's a pending case, Attorney General's office isn't commenting about this. And we do know that, yeah, she's arguing that she was doing what she thought as a driver she should do. And as we pointed out, it is in the driver license study guide that's put out by state police to put your hazards on and indicate that you're trying to stop. And I think that's why this case is, now getting so much attention, is because the video shows her slowing down. Even in the police report, he notes that, she slowed down, she had the blinkers on, and was in the right lane that whole time. And so that's a big question there. But what we heard, when we took this to lawmakers, last week, we heard Senator Ballinger saying that, what he saw there, he felt like was highly inappropriate. And he did follow it up saying with, at the end of the day, though, you don't necessarily want to be using a tactic that could, kill someone, even if it is over fleeing. So I think that's going to be a question that we'll hear from lawmakers, if this is a conversation that they do continue.
Well, and it'll be interesting to see, you have been the one investigating this, which has sparked now not just a national response, but now even a global one, as we've seen newspapers and websites from across the world pick up your investigation. And it will be interesting to see what lawmakers have to say about this now that the ACLU has asked them to investigate. Just because ACLU has asked them to investigate, lawmakers aren't technically required to investigate, right? So, I mean, it's going to be up to lawmakers if they feel like change is needed.
And I mean, at last check, I did check back in with Senator Ballinger yesterday. He is one of the chairs of the committee that oversees state police. And the word from him was they haven't set a date to have a sit down with state police, but it is something that they are working on. And, right now it is summer. And so they're trying to just coordinate schedules. But according to him, it is a conversation that they still want to have. And they're just trying to plan, a timing for that.
All right. Susan El Khoury, working for you, and Fox 16 investigates now this story that has created major attention on the state of Arkansas. One would argue, Susan, it's unwanted attention by authorities or officials, but this is certainly one of your investigations that has sparked a lot of attention that lawmakers are now being forced to look at due to this national attention. So, Susan, thank you. Real quick, let us know if somebody's watching right now and they say, okay, I've tried other journalists, but I need a journalist who's going to spark change. How can they get in touch with you?
Best way is always email. So you can send us an email to one of our investigative lines, or you can send an email to one of my work lines. It's slkhoury@kark.com. And, we take it seriously looking into these tips and investigations. And, like we've done here, it's, we see something and we don't just put it down. We keep going and looking. And that's what you've seen with our continuous coverage and the attention we try to give to everyone who reaches out with a concern that they have.
All right. Susan El Khoury, working for you. Fox 16 Investigates. Thanks for your time today. Really appreciate it. Again, breaking news as the ACLU is asking lawmakers to investigate the use of pit maneuvers by Arkansas State Police. It's after a Working for You and Fox 16 investigation. We have complete coverage at KARK.com and Fox16.com as well. Have a great rest of your afternoon. Your next newscast at 4 o'clock. Breaking news as it happens all day long right here on the device that you're watching.
This has been a special report from Fox 16 and KARK4.